Brian Colon will make a great auditor.
Brian grew up pretty poor, so as auditor, protecting our tax dollars will be important to him.
Brian is the only candidate with a background in finance and law.
So he has what it takes to fight waste, fraud, and abuse as auditor.
Brian invests in New Mexico by mentoring hundreds of young people.
Brian will invest in education and expand opportunities for future generations.
So how do we know, as auditor, Brian Colon will invest in New Mexico? Because he's invested in all of us. Thanks, Brian!
Brian Colon, Democrat for auditor.
Filling Phillies. It's the best in town. It's Filling Phillies. We use quality meats and fresh Amoroso rolls directly from Philly, where every sandwich is a work of art. You can order online or dine in. Come visit us today at all 3 locations, Uptown, the West Side, or our brand new location in downtown Albuquerque on 301 Central.
Gary Johnson has a record of independence and success. In his 8 years as New Mexico governor, our state flourished. Now politicians of both parties in D.C. are spending us into bankruptcy. As a successful businessman and governor, Gary Johnson knows how to create jobs and keep government under control. Gary Johnson's only loyalty is to you. Send a historic message to Washington by voting for an independent voice. Vote for Gary Johnson for U.S. Senate.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
And good morning, everybody. It's the Sports Desk every week, every Tuesday, live here on Proview Network's Comcast 26. And we also stream live on Facebook, and you can also see us on YouTube throughout the week as well. It'll be posted right after the show. And we have a busy show. We have a special guest on hand as well. We reacquaint ourselves with Ed Nunez, who was out of town last week, and Ed, you had a special occasion a week ago.
I did. It was my wife and I's 30th anniversary, and we went on a cruise for about 3 days. So it was a great time, and my wife and I sometimes forget in the hustle and bustle of life we have to, take care of each other and enjoy each other as well, and we did.
I had to bring that up because a lot of times you'll be tied up with work and won't be able to make it here. This wasn't work-related. This was a nice occasion.
No, you know what? Like I said, I appreciate you bringing that up, Scott. We did a cruise for our 25th anniversary, and we did one for our 30th. And, 30 years being married to my wife is a very special woman. I love her so much. Yeah, no, to be married to me, I know where you're going with that.
No, I've met her. I know her.
She's
she's an outstanding person.
I love her so much. So I'm very fortunate, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Someone's got to put up with
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Speaking of putting up, a guy that's putting up with us right now here this morning, Bruce Carver. Are you still retired?
Somewhat.
Bruce Carver, the former executive director of athletics for the Rio Rancho Public Schools, and I didn't realize until this morning he was also in charge of the middle schools. I knew he was in charge of Cleveland and Rio Rancho, and quite an undertaking for an area that's growing by leaps and bounds. When you took over, what was it like then, and what has it become?
Well, it was pretty neat taking over Rio Rancho and starting a staff from scratch at Cleveland High School. We hired everybody out there, and you're starting a brand new school, so that's exciting. And then, of course, Rio Rancho took a little bit of a step back initially when we we had 2 high schools, but they were able to come back from that little step back, and they did pretty well. So we felt, it was fun being over all that, and we did a lot of stuff with the facilities over there. The coaches, the relationships that we had, the building of the whole deal was fun. But at some point, you call it good and move on to other things. And approaching 60 years old, I felt like I needed to change. It was just time after 23 years in school administration.
Where were you at before that? I know a lot of people know, but I'm asking.
A place called Hobbs, America. Actually, Hobbs, New Mexico. We always joke, but that's kind of the saying, Hobbs, America. But I was at Hobbs for 13 years,
wow.
Went there in '97 and was part of 5 different basketball state championships there through the time I was there.
Yeah, they know how to play basketball a little bit over there.
It was always frustrating that we couldn't quite get over the hump in football. You know, at times we knocked on the door, and I think they're knocking on the door again now, you know, but we never could cross that, get to the top of that mountain. But it was fun, and I hated to leave Hobbs. It wasn't an easy thing to do, you know, when you're part of a community like that and you're close to people and you have friends. It was tough. I'd been there a long time. I raised our kids there. My wife and I raised our kids there. Let's correct that.
Right. Well, let's talk about Hobbs, because the unique thing about Hobbs this year, they're hosting a Lobo game. That's how big Hobbs is.
That's pretty cool. Cool idea. Another cool idea from Coach Ware. He did that last year. You know, he came out to Rio Rancho, did a practice over there, and I think he did a couple other practices. He's got some really vision on things like that, on relating. Yeah. He wants to go down to Hobbs and be part of that tradition and have his kids see, you know, what happened there with the running game. And of course, he likes to run, so I think he does some cool stuff.
Before I let Ed jump in, he learned that, and he's the first one to admit it, from Mario Mocho over at New Mexico State, because a couple of years ago when he was still at State, they came to northern New Mexico to play northern New Mexico and played out at Santa Ana Star.
Yeah, that was a good public relations move, and Coach Ware appears to be very good with public relations. I think he can coach a little basketball too. I'm a Lobo fan, and I am 100% on board.
One of the things that you mentioned, and when you mentioned Hobbs, I called the 2001 Hobbs-Clovis State Championship in the pit. You know, Coach Gilmore, and I think it was Coach Ferguson for Clovis. I can't remember his name, but I know it was Coach Gilmore. And, you know, Hobbs won, Ronald Ross. I remember, gosh, he was hitting some deep threes. I never ran as fast as I did that night, and I never ran like that again. You know, adrenaline, man, adrenaline. But when you mention Hobbs, and I've been a basketball coach, player, official. When you mention Hobbs basketball, I go back to the 80s, you know, even the 70s. Jeff Taylor and senior, not junior. Wallace Williams. I mean, they had some outstanding players. They would walk in, with their jackets, and there would be a murmur throughout the pit as soon as they came down to watch a game. You'd hear it, there's Hobbs. And you still hear that, when you hear Hobbs basketball, people still quake in their boots, much like when they hear Artesia football. They've been winners for years. What used to get me, Bruce, is when they would win the championships, when Coach Tasker was there, these boys would surround him like he was their father, man. And I never forgot it, never. I don't know how you could forget that. He was an outstanding, of course, coach, but mentor, and so much more than just a coach.
Yeah, it's a great tradition, and I was fortunate to be part of it, and I obviously I learned a lot from Coach Tasker. Fortunate or unfortunate, whatever you want to call it, I was in the position where we had to name the person that was going to replace Ralph Tasker, which was no easy feat. And so I was part of Russ Gilmore in the transition and what he did there. So yeah, being part of all that are memories I certainly will always take with me, and just the tradition to go in there and see those banners hanging, 16 of them,
It's like the Boston Garden.
Hanging across there, yeah. And then go to the trophy cases and look at some of the history, and it was neat to be part of it.
One of the things that you mentioned before, and we have Bruce Carver, former Executive Director of Athletics for Rio Rancho Public Schools, big hand in Rio Rancho and Cleveland High School's success. And you talked about facilities. Now, who drew out the plans for the facilities? Because, you go all the way, I use Cleveland as an example. You have the Performing Arts Center, you got the stadium, you got the arena, the gymnasium. Everything is big. It's not overly big, but it's big, it's modern. It's almost like mini college facilities. Who planned all that out? Because both schools, fantastic.
Well, I think you have to give the community credit, because those came about. You only get so much money when you're building a new high school from the state, but they pass school bonds. Rio Rancho has always passed every school bond they've ever put in front of the public, and they passed them by big, huge numbers. So I think that's the key. It's not that Rio Rancho is a rich community, as some people might perceive. It's not. It's a normal community economically, but they were able to pass those school bonds, which the community played a big part in that. But as far as the actual planning, back when the original one in 95, 96, 97, that area when they started doing all that, I'm not sure how it all came about. I know Intel was involved a lot. The last time with Cleveland High School, I know Gary Veem, the former athletic director, was a consultant who helped. I came in on the tail end of it and had some input, as we were getting ready the last year. I was here a year before we opened Cleveland, but I was at the tail end of it. So, a lot of people had a part in it, but they do have great facilities and a lot of good kids.
In what you've done over the years, what was the biggest challenge for you?
Oh gosh, there's been
both boys and girls side, because you dealt with both.
Yeah, I'm gonna take your question and cheat a little bit. I'm gonna say 2. Really, replacing Ralph Tasker in basketball, the high profile of that situation, the media, the whole thing, going through that, living through that was probably one of the toughest. As far as Cleveland Rio Rancho, you're coming in, it's kind of like Volcano Cibola. There's some resentment over this new high school coming in from the guys that have been here. So, with me, the big challenge was winning those guys at Rio Rancho High School, winning them over to that I'm going to support them, believing in my philosophy, making my philosophy part of their philosophy, trust, loyalty, all those things. And that took time. That's not going to happen overnight. But I say both those were huge challenges.
Coach, when I look at Cleveland, and I'm a Highland High graduate, the football power used to swing here in Albuquerque. Not anymore, right? But when I look at Cleveland, I tell Scott this all the time, you got a field on campus, right? 5 uniforms, and I'm exaggerating, 50
coaches. It might be 6 or 7 by now, right?
No, that's not.
I'm just exaggerating.
That's a policy.
10, you got the coaches. I mean, it's Heath Ridenauer, just from a football standpoint, Sean Nunez as well, Brian Smith before him, have done a great job in building a baseball program as well. But I admire that when, again, I come from a school that they played at Milne and they played at Wilson. But Lightning Bolt Stadium, when I go out there, I'm thinking, man, it is tough to play there and win there. It is. Yeah. You've got the cannon, you've got the whole thing out there, man. Plus, you've got some talent. You have to have talent, and they do. So, a great job in that facility. I mean, when I go there, I'm just, again, there's not much out there surrounding it. There will be. I might not be around to see that, but there will be.
Yeah.
But when I look at it, I tell Scott this all the time. I'm like, who wouldn't want to play here, man? I mean,
it's pretty neat.
Yes, so
you
great
got
job.
the mountain in the backdrop.
Great job with that.
I think, again, one of the community deciding in the school district, the school board, that we're going to have another football stadium. Because there was a big push just to have one stadium and let both high schools share it. There was that out there, with some to save money. But they would always been playing at Rio Rancho Stadium. So Cleveland would have always been the visitor at Rio Rancho High Field. Hey, that's not going to work real well. So that was a smart thing that they did. Other than that, I could just say, we're fortunate, lucky to get some great head coaches. Kurt Potter was the first football coach we hired at Cleveland, and you know what? It paid off. I think his experience, working with Coach Bradley all those years, he built it. He got the mental part of it going, and then Coach Ridenauer coming in behind him. And learning from him, we were fortunate to have those guys. We're just lucky.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Because when I look at Joe Beta did a great job on the Cleveland Storm documentary that he did, and going back and the players that they've had there, right? They've had some out there. Dorian Lewis this year, Romel Jordan, Heath, Cole Gauchi in the past. They've had some outstanding talent. There's no doubt. But you mentioned Coach Potter and then Coach Ridenauer. I think the world of Coach Ridenauer. He's just a great. Anytime I've asked him, for things for Proview Networks or Enchantment Sports, he's so forthcoming.
Well, I used to say that Coach Ridenauer was one of the best young coaches in the state. I believe he's one of the best coaches in the state now. He's not one of the best young coaches. He's one of the best coaches. He does a great job relating to kids and still having discipline. And you don't see that. You don't always see that with head coaches. Sometimes they have the discipline, but they can't relate to the kids. And then you go over here to this other guy that's too soft. He's still able to bring back that old mental toughness. And so, yeah, I think a lot of Heath.
Well, let me just get this comment in, Scott, real quick. I was talking to one of my former Highland. I played basketball at Highland. I wasn't a football player, but we were talking about coaches.
I thought you were a referee in high school.
No, I played ball, man.
I played basketball too. Yeah. We need to get together sometime.
Yeah, we talked about that, Bruce. Yeah. I still got one game left, man. Let's get.
We don't look like basketball coaches. We look like football coaches.
Exactly.
But hey, there it is.
But we were talking about Coach Gentry. Coach of the legendary Bill Gentry. And I'll tell you what, Coach Gentry was. You mentioned the mental toughness. He was going to say, "Hey, great job." He was going to let you, grab the helmet. He even did that with his son, Tom Gentry, who was a quarterback when I was a senior. And Tom got no quarter at all. He was harder on Tom than he was on anyone. And that's just the way Coach Gentry was. That was old school mental toughness. There wasn't anything, "Good job, son." Nothing like that.
Right.
If you jumped off sides, it was you know what. So
old school.
Yeah, that you can't do that anymore.
No.
I played for Coach Bill Duffy at St. Pius 1 year. Then I went to Highland. Coach Glenn Lucero was the same way, fingers in your chest. For me, I was like, okay, I just played harder. My old man was harder on me than that. So, but you can't do that anymore. Those old school days are gone.
That's true. I think you still can do some of it, but you need to throw in a lot of positives. You need to throw in a lot of love too, and Coach Roddenhare can do both.
So,
great guy.
Before we go to break, and we have Bruce Carver, former executive director of athletics at Rio Rancho Public Schools, Rio Rancho High School, and Cleveland High School as our guest. What are you doing nowadays?
A lot of stuff. You know what? It's
besides doing color commentary on Proview Network.
It's amazing how much.
You're doing a great job, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's amazing how much you can do more than you ever thought you could. So the good news is a change for me. I'm back in coaching, believe it or not. I never really planned on that, but I am back as an assistant basketball coach at Rio Rancho High School, coaching boys basketball for Wally Salata, and I'm enjoying
Somebody just
it.
walked by and was smiling at you.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that. Working with boys again. I been away from the game. A lot of rust on the whistle. 23 years, but there's still a lot of passion for the game, and there's still a lot of passion for working with young men. So I'm really enjoying that. I also have another little part-time job working with therapy and working with older people a lot with therapy. I've got that little part-time gig going, and I'm also be my 9th game Thursday night with Proview. So they get to listen to this Texas twang and get to hear that. If you turn on to Proview, you'll get to hear that.
Well, Bruce, want to thank you so much for joining us. This was an unexpected pleasure, and always great to see and talk to you.
Appreciate both you guys,
Bruce,
and be seeing you guys around. Thank you.
Bruce Carver, the former executive director of athletics for the Rio Rancho Public Schools, and now he's doing everything. Thought he was retired, but anyway, he was our guest here, and we will come back with more here on the Sports Desk. But first, the top 10 plays of the week brought to you by Dreamstyle.
Sends it in. Blanchard, can he finish? Yes! And St. Pius is through, and it's 1-0.
And almost was gone there.
Jasper's got speed.
And here's a screen pass over to the right side, and that's going to be broken all the way to the end zone. And just like that, Rio Rancho's in.
Down at 10 for the Cowboys. They give it to Alston. Alston turns it up 20. Alston 10. Alston to the house. Has a man out there. Ball is caught. Touchdown, Cowboys. That's kept up, and it's the defense that continues to do the work here. So active, Cibola. Casal sends a free ball. Wandra, far side. Off the block is Hudson. Martinez can still set to Casals. Backcourt, no. Dumped over by Wandra. Here comes Martinez to Oliver. Why not? Kept up by Garcia in play. Maybe the longest rally. Back and forth we go. Coming around in a slide. That's blocked. In play. And a third ball's going to be a free ball from Casals. Wandra will set Mosley on the near side. Mosley. No. Oliver on a tip. Yes. We go here in the third quarter. Here's Dorian Lewis. Dorian, a stiff arm. It's Lewis. A move to the outside. Dives to the end zone.
Cleveland for a tie-up with the #1 Cleveland Storm. Montanarez back to field this one at the sideline, and he does. Hurdles through the first round of defenders. Now he's breaking to the other side of the field. There's a lot of green in front. What a vicious stiff arm. Still on his feet. He's cutting at the 10, and it's all the way back for a Cibola touchdown. Nathaniel Montanarez.
High school sports are back. The 2018-19 season kicks off, and you could watch every Proview Network broadcast live on the NFHS network. Every moment, from every game, from every sport, including all NMAA state championships. Get your highly discounted monthly pass now. Go to ProviewNetworks.com and sign up. Watch New Mexico's best.
The service department at Galetti Chevrolet is clean, modern, and ready for you. Our master technicians service every make and model, including certified service on any GM vehicle. Service done right the first time, every time, right here at the all-new Galetti Chevrolet.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters! It's like it never happened!
Back here on the Sports Desk, I'm Scott Galetti along with Ed Nunez. Thanks to Bruce Carver for joining us here. In our first segment, Josh Brown in the house, Adam Deal, Alden Iowani, our fine director, and of course Jason Poole. Without those guys, we're not here, Ed.
Never, ever. And then Josh Nunez joined the crew. He's not here today, but he's also pitching in and chiming in, and it was great to have Bruce on. We're hearing some laughter to the left of us, and Bruce has a lot of knowledge, especially what I was fascinated. Buster Mabry, told me about the story when I was officiating a state tournament game with Buster. We were in the locker room, and he mentioned about when Ralph Tasker, somebody had to go tell him that it was time to go. And you can imagine Bruce was even kind of shifting his seat with Bruce Carver when he talked about it. How do you tell a guy that's won as many championships as he has that it's time to go? So right. Buster Mabry had a great story about that. And someday I'll tell you all about it. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I mean, imagine telling, Scott, look, you came in and you replaced Mike Roberts and you did a phenomenal job, okay? You did. But you already know how it is to replace a legend, man. Right. You know how it is. Right. You walked into those shoes and you did great. But right away, there's the comparisons are inevitable. Sometimes they're not fair. So you know how it is. You know exactly what. So when Bruce was talking about it, I kind of had to okay, I mean, who, imagine the scene in my mind, someone going to tell Coach Tasker and probably limping towards it like, I don't want to do this. It's the worst thing I want to do. So, I had to kind of have a little slight smile because I remember Buster's story in the locker room.
Well, the other slight smile that I have, Ed, is because, okay, we're talking about him being retired. He's getting back into coaching?
You know what? Let me tell you something. You know, that itch.
A few ulcers.
That itch doesn't go away. And you know, my son.
And come on, he's coaching with Wally.
He's great. Yeah. He's great there. Good for him. You know, good for Wally Salata, the head coach, basketball coach at Rio Rancho. My son, you know, he passed the bar, right? He's a city attorney. He coached 3 years at Pius, and he still tells me, Dad, I want to get back in. Maybe someday he can. That itch never goes. So do I. Even when I'll retire next year, and maybe I'll go back to it. Because I loved it, man. It was a lot of fun. It really was.
Let's talk about last week's games now, as we had some good games, some not so good games. One, arguably the best game, was out of the area, and I had a chance to watch that game the second half for sure, Ed. But we'll take a look at last Thursday and Friday's action to start things off. As you look at the graphic, how about Rio Grande? They break their streak again. And you got to feel for these kids, but you also got to feel pretty good about these kids because they continue to fight adversity. They broke the streak with a victory at Valencia. It was taken away because of the use of an ineligible player, and then all of a sudden they come back and beat an Albuquerque team. When was the last time they beat Albuquerque High?
It's been a while. You know, they were on a long losing streak and give Coach Medina.
I think Albuquerque High was on their streak
right.
when they did it, obviously.
You know what? You're right. They persevered. They did have a victory, and they did self-report. That's important. So congratulations to the Ravens for breaking that streak.
We'll talk in depth about the Cleveland Volcano game and Del Norte. You know, I bring that game up. It was 54-2, but I bring up Del Norte because it seems like every year, no matter what district they're in, what classification they're in, district comes and all of a sudden they flip a switch.
Coach Binkley before the season was adamant that this was going to be one of their best teams. So maybe, again, you mentioned district started. Maybe the Knights are ready to start playing some good football.
Let's take a look at some of the other Friday action, as once again there was a lot of games last week. And there you go. How about that? Clovis, not so much of a surprise Clovis winning, but 47-0.
We mentioned that there was going to be a time.
I can't remember the last time El Dorado
was
got
blanked. Yeah, we mentioned though that there was going to be a time when the Eagles were going to feel the effect of Gabe Smith's absence, and there it was.
Man, I'm telling you, that was a big time effect. And the defense, which normally is a good calling card for them, well, 47 points, that's a lot of points. Not a lot of points. Manzano 19, Sandia 11.
Those are district rivals. You would expect that. Manzano has been, you know what, look. Should they have maybe beat La Cueva? They were right there. Damian Camacho, the kicker for La Cueva, made sure that didn't happen. But Manzano's been playing much better football the second half of the season.
And let's look at some of the other games to close out the week. And you have Piedra Vista over Miyamura. And Artesia beating Roswell 36-35. And Ed, this was a game that Roswell, it was a back-and-forth game. They took control of it. They gave the ball back to Artesia on a turnover. Artesia scores. They line up in the swinging gate. They end up going into a conventional, oh, we're going to kick it. Huddling, the quarterback goes in there. And, in fact, it confused so many people. There was a representative who was talking about the game who thought it was the actual holder. It was definitely the quarterback huddling. He gets the ball, he immediately darts to his right, goes on an angle toward the pylon, and just barely gets into the end zone for the 2-point conversion. And then Roswell goes a little conservative, and they try running and running and running, and they needed about 3 yards on a 4th down play, and they were about 2 yards short. Although some people say, well, you know, they wanted to measure. The coach got kicked out of the game because he wanted the measurement, but what a game.
You know what?
It lived up to the hype, for sure.
No, it very much did. And if you think about it this week, it's Artesia against Goddard at the Wool Bowl. So you have another big matchup. But Artesia, 5 of 6 since they started out 0-2. Let's remember this. I heard James Otis last week on the show when I was gone. And he thinks 5A's is still as wide open as it's been.
Right.
You know, and I think that's true. But it's that thing that looms over you, the Artesia Bulldogs, and you know the Mystique. Mystique can't beat you, right? Can't beat you. But sometimes people are like, oh man, and then making that play.
It may not beat you, but sometimes it gets into opponents' heads.
Okay, making that play.
And
right.
in that regard, it does beat you.
Yes, sometimes
you're beaten mentally.
Yes, and then when they make that play with 2 minutes left, Hodling reaches for the pylon. In your mind, you're like, man, we have to bury these guys. We have to bury them. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to talk to Goddard coach Chris White here for Enchantment Sports shortly. So I can't wait to see what his thoughts are.
So it's going to be an interesting thing this week on that game. So that's going to be one of the games of the week. Let's look at the game of the week last week. Cleveland, Volcano Vista. It was the My 50 game of the week, and what a game it turned out to be. A little too much Cleveland at times, but I talked to James Yotis about this on Saturday, and he said, hey, these two teams play again. He likes Volcano Vista's chances of maybe pulling out an upset.
I think it was good for Cleveland to be tested the way that they were. I mean, they really they didn't put it away. And Dorian Lewis again. Look at Deathridge. What a game he had, over 300 yards. So I think it was good for the Storm to have a test. But look, they passed it, and the 61-46 win. I'd love to see it again. Deathridge, another long throw. He throws a strange motion, but a touchdown there. So he had a heck of a game for Volcano Vista.
Yeah, that looked almost like a timing route, although it might have just been a pass in the wrong spot, and the receiver went out to get it, and there's a cannon.
Man, that it shakes us all up when we hear it.
And what's funny is we've all heard it so many times, you think that we were used to it. You would think that fans are used to it. They go to all
They
the
might
games.
be, but...
Well, some of them jump.
Yeah.
Every time that cannon goes off, especially when they test it before the game, it's pretty funny. But, this was an outstanding game, and Volcano Vista, give them credit. They fought and fought and fought, and here was only a 2-point game, but then too much of the running game for Cleveland.
Well, great highlights again. Dorian Lewis coming up big, and I think he had over 200 again. And there's another long run. I don't think that's Lewis. That might be Nieto or one of their other backs. But Cleveland again, coming up big.
Yeah, so Cleveland, the one thing about Cleveland, if you don't come up with stops and you have to come up with multiple stops, I don't see anybody beating them.
I don't either. I would love the uniform combination, by the way. I haven't seen that combo, the grays and the blues. I haven't seen that one. But yes, you're right. I mean, they have, in addition to a nice run there, but to Davison, the quarterback, Dorian Lewis, Colton Madison, Trey Watson, they have so many weapons.
And Davison coming up with some good games lately, and, a couple of weeks ago, we realized this kid can throw, and we realized that Volcano Vista can score on Cleveland a little bit.
Yes, and 46 points. I think that's the highest. And again, they took Cleveland down to the wire here. And someone, if you're a coach and you're playing, you want to be challenged. And I think it's good that the Storm rose to the occasion. But I think Volcano Vista, we'd love to see that in the playoffs again if we could.
And then this was a dagger right here, and it's only fitting, right?
Exactly. And, that Cleveland offensive, that little counter play there, Scott, little counter play for Lewis up the middle, and look at that hole.
And just look at the way he cuts. That's one of the things that amazes me. And they pulled out the fireworks. That's one of the things that Rio Rancho High and Cleveland do on occasion. And Cleveland, well, they're 8-0, 3-0. Volcano Vista 6-2. They're 2-1 in district. Davison, still a good game. 240 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 72 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. So you see the versatility. They're starting to, I think the youth of Davison, maybe they were putting some handcuffs on him earlier. They're letting him open it up, and you see the versatility in Dorian Lewis, almost 300 yards, 293, 3 touchdowns after only 90-something yards the week before, although he had almost 200 yards total offense the week before. But this is the Dorian Lewis that we see every week.
Well, I think one of the things that Heath Ridenauer told me earlier in the season about Jeff Davison, he's a sophomore, he's 15. So there's a learning curve, and you can tell as the season has advanced, Jeff Davison has played much better every week. Not that he was bad to begin with, though. So he's got a lot of weapons at his disposal as well.
The one thing that was an eye-opener for me, Ed, is the total yardage. Cleveland 605. That's about normal for them. They average about 550 a game. But Volcano Vista 545, right up there with them.
Right up behind them, So yes, I mean, you think about that, averaging 600 yards a game. Who's going to stop that machine? But Volcano Vista that day gave them everything all the run that they needed.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look now at the coaches' polls here, and we will start with 3A. Hope followed by Robertson, Dexter, Hatch Valley, and Socorro. That's your top 5. West Las Vegas, they're coming on strong, Ed, and they're number 6.
They are. West is definitely making a move there late in the season, but the Huskies have had a stranglehold on number 1 since the season started.
Let's take a look at 4A now in the NMOTSC coaches poll. And you got St. Pius moving to number 1 after the big win over Taos. It wasn't a win. It was a statement because they dominated that game.
That's a good point. 27-0 defensively dominated the Tigers. That surprised me. I had St. Pius against Kirtland Central about 2 months ago, and I wasn't totally overly impressed. I really wasn't. But you got to give them credit because they did, as you mentioned, make a statement win against Taos.
I thought the St. Pius might win the game, but I didn't know that they were going to be able to shut down that powerful Taos team.
27-0.
That was a statement.
Taos head coach Art Abreu blamed himself, said, I didn't have the kids ready, that's on me. So we'll see how the Tigers play going forward.
Speaking of how they're playing, how about Portales? They're making it up to the 3rd spot now, and they're playing very well.
Man, you know what, Scott? It's kind of sad to me to see the season, kind of ending. It's fun, but it's like,
Ed,
wow.
It's week 10.
I know. You keep telling me and I keep denying it, but yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I know, it's amazing. Week 1, we say, oh, before you know it, the season's almost going to be over. We're week 10 of 11 weeks.
I still can't believe it. Yeah, I still can't believe it.
Everybody gets a bye week, so there's 11 weeks in the high school season, and you got the playoffs right after.
Which are right around the corner.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go to 5A now, and in 5A, Goddard, number 1. Roswell, even though they lost Artesia, number 2, and Artesia is number 3. What's interesting, I've heard over the weekend a couple of reporters talking about if they played each other again on a neutral field, people are saying Roswell wins that game.
Interesting. Yeah, that could happen.
Well, it was a game. I'm watching that, and I'm thinking Roswell let one get away because they were basically the aggressors and the dominators throughout the game until that final 4 or 5 minute stretch when Artesia took over.
Here's the thing, though. You just mentioned, mystique and doubts in your mind. You had them beat, and Artesia, again, 30 state championship says we still won anyway, even though you might have dominated here and there.
Right.
The doubt is in your mind that we're still better than you. So I don't know.
And that brings back a couple of years ago when you said even though it was a game they lost, Artesia plays St. Pius in the championship game, and they came out with a lot of swagger.
I went down on the field, and I'm telling you, there's that aura, that invincibility, like we've won 30. You could have still methodical, the way they went through drills, just the whole attitude of the team. Not cocky, but just like, hey, we're winners. What do you want? What can we do for you?
They play like they've been there before.
Exactly. So, look, I think you're right. You've watched a lot of games. You know exactly what you're talking about. But the seed of doubt is definitely in the Coyotes' mind. There's no question. Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with that mistake in their aura.
Right.
And them walking on the field say, hey, we're going to beat you.
Tom Heinsohn used to talk about Celtic mystique, right? Back in the Garden. Does it block shots? Does it do anything? But no, sometimes it puts doubt in your mind.
Let's go to 6A now as we round out the coaches poll. In Cleveland, still the resounding number 1. La Cueva had a bye last week. They're number 2. Centennial. How about the way Centennial's playing?
Man.
And I had a chance to talk to Coach Ocampa over the weekend on the radio show with James Yodas on ESPN Radio 101.7 The Team. And, he believes in his kids. He still feels that they can play a lot better.
And that's great because they're nearing the end of the year. They've had a phenomenal season as it is anyway. The veteran coach also coached at Monsanto. A lot of respect for Coach Ocampo.
Volcano Vista, a strong number 4 and Hobbs number 5. And it's going to be interesting to see who gets the 4th seed and who gets the top 4 for that matter. But I think the top 3 are pretty set.
They are, and you just mentioned Volcano Vista. If you look at the game that they lost against La Cueva earlier in the year, and some of those were special team gaffes. Credit the Bears. Close game against Artesia. Against Cleveland. Cleveland puts it away with a late score, but might be a little bit deceiving. I would keep my eye on the Hawks as well. I think they're a very good team.
We'll step aside and come back with more. You're watching the Sports Desk here on Proview Sports, Comcast 26, and on Facebook Live.
Dream Style Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dreamstyle Remodeling is family-owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dreamstyle Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club, or dreamstyleremodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Duke City Sports Bar, proud supporter of Proview Sports and New Mexico Youth Athletics. Catch all the sports action from high school, college, pros, and MMA on one of our 35 HD TVs. Start your night off right with any selection from our delicious menu prepared with fresh, never frozen ingredients. Duke City Sports Bar, Albuquerque's newest sports bar. Located on Eubank and Montgomery, dial 505-433-4020.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
It's hard for a child to learn when they're hungry or being abused at home. Let's stop blaming teachers for problems they didn't create. I'm Steve Pierce. My mom loved teaching, but now Santa Fe asks teachers to be truant officers or social workers. Let our teachers teach, fix our broken test system, and put more money into classrooms. Good teachers don't give up on their kids. As governor, I will not give up on our teachers.
This is Coach Borrego of the Charlotte Hornets. Hello to all you parents out there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to congratulate 38 years for the AYBL. You guys are doing a great job. You've shaped a lot of lives, young men and women, and you'll continue to do that. Parents, get involved, sign your kid up. It's a great program. It helped shape who I am today, helped shape me as a basketball player, as a coach. So get out there, sign them up. Have a great season. Good luck to everybody.
Gary Johnson has a record of independence and success. In his 8 years as New Mexico governor, our state flourished, and he left with a surplus. Gary Johnson did exactly what he promised: cut taxes, reduced the size of state government, and held legislature responsible for reckless spending. Now, politicians of both parties in D.C. are spending us into bankruptcy. They can't stop their addiction to spending, and they don't know how to create jobs. As a successful businessman and governor, Gary Johnson knows how to create jobs and keep government under control. You won't have to ask where Gary Johnson's loyalties lie. It won't be to a party. It won't be to the D.C. swamp. Gary Johnson's only loyalty is to you. His only goal is to help New Mexico. Send a historic message to Washington by voting for an independent voice. Vote for Gary Johnson for U.S. Senate. Protect Freedom PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
We're back here on the Sports Desk, here on Comcast Channel 26, ProView Network Sports. and of course on Facebook Live later on. You can also replay the show on Facebook and on YouTube. We're everywhere, Ed.
Yeah, you know what? Starting since early September, I think, or late August, we had our first show live, and you and I have been doing the show quite a long time together. So it's great to be on all those social media things.
4 years come February, or
yeah, it's been a while.
January, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was after Richard Tripp moved up to West Las Vegas.
Right, it's been a while.
I was Richard's co-host, and you and I have been doing this for quite a long time, and it's fun.
Oh no, every week is fun. I look forward to. Bruce is a great guest. We've had great guests in here, and been able to talk about high school sports, some Lobo sports as well, and just kind of shoot it back and forth. Oh yeah, that's right. I miss those, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had a few good guests, and of course, we were talking about Paul Weir, the basketball coach. We had him.
You know what? One of the things about Coach Weir, and Bruce Carver said this too, what a great salesman he is for the program. And I saw Coach Weir at the Dream Style Arena, the pit. I still say that, in the parking lot, and we talked for about 10 minutes. He's the kind of guy that, again, he sells a program, but he never thinks. I've seen Lobo coaches since Norm Ellenberger, and Norm wasn't like that. Norm was a guy that'd see you, hey, what's up, guys? He, real friendly guy.
Right.
And so, Steve Alford wasn't the most friendly guy. He wasn't, but good coach, right? Craig Neal wouldn't even look at you, man. So, and that's fine. Whatever. Everybody's different. You don't have to be a certain way. You can be however you want. But when you have a coach like that goes he loves to talk about history. If you go to him and say, hey, coach, this game in the pit in 1978 or whatever, he's like glued in. He wants to know about it. He's a historian. That's why he's going down to Hobbs to go play a game. Mm-hmm. So, and he's a personable guy. Now look, me and you will say this too. Does personality win games? No, right? It doesn't. No. You better win here, or...
Well, here's the thing. He's tough in terms of being a coach. He works his players to the bone.
Does.
I mean, his players aren't going to say, wow, we went out and partied. No, they're working their tails off.
Every day.
That's the thing. He knows how to balance. Work the team. He knows how to balance, and he knows how to be off the court.
Well, the thing about him is that I like about him is he respects people.
Right.
He doesn't look at anybody like, oh, I'm the Lobo coach and you're not. And let's face it. In this town here, it's Albuquerque.
You could look that way.
but in that seat there, Lobo head basketball coach. As far as sports goes, it's probably the most important chair you got. Now I'm not downgrading the other sports either.
Right. No, you're not.
But I've been around.
But it's true.
Yes. So when you're the head Lobo basketball coach,
it didn't even take me 10 years to learn that. It took me about 3 months.
Well, when you were broadcasting with the Lobos, they were at the point where they were really hot, man. Hot ticket, right? Dream Style Arena was still, it hadn't been renovated yet, or had it been?
My first year was the last year before the renovations start. That was the 08-09 season. Then they were renovating it the year after, and then they opened it up with the renovations in 2010-11.
So you saw what Dave Bliss, former UNM coach Dave Bliss, would call pit games. You saw a lot of those pit games, man. So
last home game of that 2008-2009 season, that was the year that the Lobos kind of got jobbed, and they were in a 3-way tie for first. They got jobbed, but then they lost some tough games that they shouldn't have lost, especially in Cancun. But they're
I remember those.
I'll never forget Scott Dietrichson saying, "This is your pit game," and we had a couple that year, but it was Utah, and it was the battle to get them into the spot to get a 3-way tie for the conference title.
I remember
they ended up winning that game. Then we went to Wyoming, and they had to win that game to solidify it, but it was a road game, so you had the 3-way tie. And then they play Wyoming again and laid an egg.
Yeah, no.
And they ended up going to the NIT, beat Nebraska, and then go to Notre Dame and almost beat Notre Dame. But it was one of those seasons of would-have, could-have.
I remember that game in Notre Dame. I remember. It's also
Reese Gary missed some free throws that you never saw him miss, and to this day he blames himself on that loss.
And think about it, we had him in a summer ago as a guest, and just one of the most humble people you could one of the finest.
That game killed him. And when he got injured against BYU at the Mountain West tournament, where I'll never forget, it happened, and he's in pain. It happened basically about 10 feet where our cameras are right now, from where Scott and I were sitting at the Thomas and Mack Center, and he's in pain. Players are coming over, and what's he saying? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's apologizing to his teammates for getting hurt. I'll never forget that. As long as I live, I'll never forget, because Doris Gary was such a special player, and he still is a special person.
Yeah, that's more than anything. You can have the best players in the world, but they're not the best people, but he definitely is.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't believe he's apologizing, man. Yeah.
Let's go back to the high school scene. We'll look at some of the standings. Not inundating with the standings this week, Ed. You missed it last week. We went over all the standings, but we're going to go over 6A now. And we'll go over District 1 first as you take a look. Cleveland on top, along with Rio Rancho, Volcano Vista 2-1.
Rio Rancho making a late season surge. They're 3-0 in the district and 4-4. Volcano Vista, I still think they're the better team. Cibola swamped West Mesa, who's had a lot of injury problems for the Mustangs under their first-year head coach. And Trisco Heritage has just not played well all year.
Move along to District 2 now, and there you see La Cueva at 2-0, Manzano and Clovis are 2-1. How about Clovis getting up to 2-1? They're 4-5 overall, and then you got Sandia and El Dorado kind of rounding out the bottom, which is kind of surprising because El Dorado at 5-3, we expected a lot more, but without their quarterback, it's been tough.
Does he come back this week? I wonder. I don't know what the schedule looks like this week, but I wonder if Charlie Dotson, El Dorado head coach Charlie Dotson, trots him out there.
Let's go to District 3, and there you see it, even though the picture is Hobbs. I left that picture up there because I like the picture, and we don't give Hobbs a lot of love on the photos, as most of the time we have a Las Cruces picture up there, so I left that up there. But Centennial is 9-0 and 5-0, and they were the first one to clinch a district.
Kind of flying under the radar. I know they've been good. We've talked about them, but everyone seems to be focusing on Cleveland and for a while La Cueva. But they're number 3, and they've been playing some great football, no question.
Take a look at this week's action now, as we'll go through these quickly. As we'll look at some of the games. You got Cleveland, West Mesa, El Dorado, Manzano, Albuquerque at Shiprock. That'll be an interesting game on Friday. Sandia, La Cueva. That's always a tough battle, no matter what the records are.
Oh, always. That's a very fierce rivalry there.
And Las Lunas at Valley at Milne Stadium. This is a game that Valley really needs after that loss to Berlin last week.
Well, they won 4 in a row, and I thought they were on a somewhat good roll. They had gotten some players back. I thought that was going to be a much more competitive game, but the Eagles really spanked them good. So I was kind of surprised about that.
Other games on Friday, you got Volcano, Rio Rancho. That's going to be an excellent game. Berlin at Valencia. That could be a very interesting game.
You know what? That's a regional rivalry there, and Wes Schenk from the Valencia coach has done a great job there with the Jaguars in his first year. So you would expect Berlin to win, but I'm telling you, you never know.
And finally, we got a Saturday game on the docket here. And Saturday, I guess I could fit it on the same page, but Santa Fe against Del Norte at Milne. And Del Norte, you would think, has to be the favorite in this one.
Santa Fe's been struggling all year, and yes, you would expect that.
Let's take a look real quickly at top performers now before we go to whatever we're going to next. You got Lucero of Valencia, 1,900 yards, 22 touchdowns, 8 picks to lead the way. And you've got Isaiah Chavez, Rio Rancho making it into the top 5 this week.
Isaiah Chavez, the last 3 weeks, has played look at his stats, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So he's played very well the last couple weeks.
Roll through the next ones real quick, as you got Dorian Lewis. We don't have the stats. I think he's up to about 1,800 yards now after last week. And DeAndre Williams is number 6 now, or number 7 if you will. But he didn't play a game last week, but his numbers are good. Xavier Ivy-Sod still up there at 1106, and then you got the receivers. And the wide receiver front is as follows. Jaramillo continues to lead the way. Jaramillo, Samaj Cotton, number 5, but he's an outstanding receiver. And how about Antonio Padilla? In only 7 games, 733 yards. We don't have his last game, so could be more than that. We'll step aside very quickly, come back with one more segment of the Sports Desk.
Gary Johnson has a record of independence and success. In his 8 years as New Mexico governor, our state flourished, and he left with a surplus. Gary Johnson did exactly what he promised: cut taxes, reduced the size of state government, and held legislature responsible for reckless spending. Now, politicians of both parties in D.C. are spending us into bankruptcy. They can't stop their addiction to spending, and they don't know how to create jobs. As a successful businessman and governor, Gary Johnson knows how to create jobs and keep government under control. You won't have to ask where Gary Johnson's loyalties lie. It won't be to a party. It won't be to the D.C. Swamp. Gary Johnson's only loyalty is to you. His only goal is to help New Mexico. Send a historic message to Washington by voting for an independent voice. Vote for Gary Johnson for U.S. Senate. Protect Freedom PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This is Coach Borrego of the Charlotte Hornets. Hello to all you parents out there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to congratulate 38 years for the AYBL. You guys are doing a great job. You've shaped a lot of lives, young men and women, and you'll continue to do that. Parents, get involved, sign your kid up. It's a great program. It helped shape who I am today, helped shape me as a basketball player, as a coach. So get out there, sign them up. Have a great season. Good luck to everybody.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Final segment here on the Sports Desk. Scott Galetti along with Ed Nunez, Alden Iowani, our fine director, the whole crew here with Jason Pohl, Josh Brown in the house.
They're all here. You know, it's funny, too, because, you know, I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan, and Josh Luna wore the Washington Redskins jersey. Ryan Kerrigan, the guy that sacked Dak Prescott and recovered in the end zone yesterday. And I'm looking, I don't know where he even got. Ryan Kerrigan's not a jersey you see all the time, man. So I had to laugh at that, though, because it was kind of a little subtle rub in. But Josh Luna is a quiet guy, and he doesn't, you know, he's not going to say anything to your face. But when you saw the jersey, I'm still kind of feeling the pain of that loss. And I had to laugh, though. It was, you know, because let's face it, it's a football game, man. I mean, life goes on, right? I used to take it way harder when I was younger, but in my older years, I had to let that go because it doesn't affect my life, right? It, at least not, you know what I mean? How does it affect your life? It doesn't really.
Not really.
It's just
but it seems like it does.
What I would call it, and I've told you this before, anytime the Lakers lost last night, you know, in overtime, and I wanted them to get a win. What I call it is, I told you, a hangover without the alcohol. I'll look in the morning like, oh, the highlights, turn them off if my teams lose. Now, if they win, I'm going, making other rounds, ESPN, Fox, watching it over and over.
Yeah,
so,
I remember going to school back in the day when the Lakers were good and they were winning championships or at least contending. And I'd go to school, you know, with a frown or whatever. Hey, what's wrong? Lakers lost last night. You upset about that? What's wrong? No, so I know the feeling. Let's take a look now at the 5A Coaches Poll for volleyball as that season quickly coming to a close. We have the 5A poll coming right up there, and La Cueva, Sandia, Las Cruces, Piedra Vista, and Rio Rancho all round out the top 5 still.
Yes, hasn't changed much. We've had some great matches on Proview Networks between Cibola and La Cueva. Some really good matches that Adam Deal's been doing. So it's good to see those girls. Gosh, I did a volleyball match 2 weeks ago in Santa Fe. And, man, that was a good match. It really was.
Now, we spent a lot of time with Bruce Carver catching up with him in the first segment, so we're kind of scrambling here to get it all in. Very quickly, we'll look at last week's Lobo game, 38-7, not a lot to talk about. Lobos just outmatched. Some people say, hey, it was the officiating, but I would say it was 433 yards of total offense.
Oh, man, outmatched. You know, penalties did hurt New Mexico. But I told you this on Saturday. I'll say this again. It's more of a cultural thing. And I heard James Yotis last week talking about when Fresno hung 94 on the Lobos. I remember that. They were trying to go for 100. I guess Jim Sweeney, the former Fresno coach, someone talked him out of it. Look, the Lobos are what they are. And I told you, if they get 6 wins and make a Lobo Bowl game or New Mexico Bowl, I'll be happy.
Real quickly, this is the upcoming game, and this is probably, it's supposed to be the more winnable of the top flight teams in the Mountain West, but it might be the toughest because of what Utah State's been doing. 51.7 points a ball game. They throw it now, and they're only giving up 23 a ball game.
I asked you. We said, is it going to be Utah State, Boise State, Fresno State, or San Diego State? Lobos have to break through against one of those teams, and, man, they got a tall order this week.
They need an upset. They need to beat Air Force and Wyoming to be able to get bowl eligible, as they're stuck on 3 right now. Well, the show flew by, Ed. We'll do this again next week.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it, Scott. It's always a pleasure.
Our thanks to Alden Iowani and the crew. For Ed Nunez, I'm Scott Galetti. We'll talk to you next week on the Sports Desk.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Brian Cologne will make a great